Mic. Camera. Action.
You the agent in charge of the God's Hand case?
That's right. Where's the door?
It's a picture of you and your mother, huh?
I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't take things off my desk.
Oh, sorry about that. Guess I've been in here a while. Already had a look at all your plaques and your citations. Didn't really care to have a look at those.
So, what can I do for you, Mr.
Meeks. Name's Fenton Meeks. Listen, this may sound a little bit crazy, but I know who the God's Hand killer is.
All right, I'll buy. Who?
You hadn't even heard me out yet, and already you doubt me. Why's that?
Because in a case like this, nobody just walks into the office and tells you who the killer is. It just doesn't happen that way.
Sometimes truth defies reason, Agent Dole.
Yeah? So who is it then?
My brother.
All right. Welcome back to the Filmography, the show dedicated to watching every credited film from an actor's complete back catalogue from past debut through to present day in chronological order. Each episode, I'm joined by an esteemed guest to watch and discuss the next entry from the Focus Filmography and consider how it ranks amidst their career and whether we can trace any typecasting trends or topic traits or theatrical tics. Today's returning guest is Max Byrne. Today's film is Bill Paxton's Frailty from 2001. We watch, you listen, and hopefully watch along too. Good evening, Max. This is one that you were very keen to get on when I released the list, so I can't wait to hear what you have to say. Because it's quite an interesting one in terms of content, quality, like production values, all that kind of stuff. I think there's a lot that we could delve into tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Jack, for having me on again. I mean, after last time I was on, you made me watch arguably one of the worst films I've ever seen in the form of Scorpion Spring. Jesus, yes. But happy to say that in having me on again to discuss this film is a film I do like very, very much. And having not watched it for over 20 years, it was the perfect reason to watch it again. Like you said, there's a lot going on in this film. I don't want to play my hand too early, but to say it's an improvement on Scorpion Spring is sort of the most redundant statement ever. I think it's a very, very well-made film, very economical storytelling and production and what have you, but I think it's really very good.
Yeah, and for a directorial debut as well. Obviously, Bill Paxton is in it as Dad, but he was handed the reins here for the first time. Does a really good job.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree. I think he's excellent. It's a shame, really. He didn't really direct much more after this. It was about 4 years after this, he did a film called The Greatest Game Ever Played, which is a film about golf, a true story. I'm not a golf aficionado, so I've got no frame of reference for that. But, considering he didn't tragically pass away till, I think, 2017, there's a lot of years after this that he did. I don't know why he didn't direct again after, and this film was well received. It didn't make a lot of money at the box office, but it's a low budget film, wasn't massively promoted. I mean, it made over its budget. It made $17 million off an $11 million budget, so it made money. And I don't know why he never did it again, whether he didn't enjoy it the second time around and that put him off, or couldn't find any material that spoke to him as a director. I'm really not sure. But I think his directing in this is excellent. I think it really is, not to mention his performance as well.
Yeah. We'll talk about both those. There's a couple of scenes in particular that I think his directing really shines through, that how he's choosing to frame scenes and set up relationships between characters feels kind of Fincher-esque to me at times. There's a heavy like influence of Seven here in this movie, isn't there? Which kind of permeates every scene from the opening very Seven-esque credits to kind of final twists and stuff. But yeah, that's not to downplay what he does. I think it's really, really good. I agree with you on both aspects in terms of the performance, which is really layered and seems quite simple on the surface, but actually has a lot going on underneath. And I think probably that describes the direction quite well too.
Yeah, definitely. I think you look at someone like Bill Paxton, his career's most, not to say that that's all he ever did, but his career was mostly built on playing larger than life characters. Like his signature role of say, Hudson in Aliens, and you think of him in films like Predator 2, Weird Science, things like this.
True Lies.
True Lies, Simon in True Lies. All those are really broad performances, like almost pantomime in a way. But this is really dialed down and really subtle, and there's no real scenery eating from me in this. Maybe in a couple of scenes, and it's interesting. I watched a behind the scenes doc. I think it must have been lifted off like a DVD extra. Or something.
I think I watched the same one, about 20 minutes long.
About 20 minutes long, correct? Yeah, and you remember in that he was talking about being a director, saying that obviously the script was first presented to him to play the part of Dad, because obviously we don't know he never gets to reveal his name, and he says in that, doesn't he, something like, I was thinking who could direct this, and he was saying, I thought I would be the only. It's really weird phrasing, but he said he thought he would be the only person who could direct himself to get the kind of performance needed for the character, which is really weird kind of way of justifying directing it yourself, saying, well, I needed myself to direct myself, to perform myself, which is really kind of strange. But I mean, the ends justifies the means, I guess. I think I'm all in on this film. I really do like it.
All layers of narcissism in the statement, but as you said, kind of the proof at the end is that he was probably actually quite right to be so focused on himself. I really found that a lot of these behind the scenes stuff I watch for these episodes, they don't often offer a lot of material to add to the discussion, if I'm honest. But this one, what I really liked was seeing Paxton behind the scenes, seeing that level of enthusiasm that he had to everything that he was doing, and how in control he seemed of everything. Like, he had the American football for a lot of it, didn't he? And it was like he'd been given this opportunity and wanted to make the most of it. So I think, again, that kind of level of enthusiasm combined with the craft helps to come through with the ultimate quality at the end, doesn't it? It doesn't feel like he's, sometimes when you do something and you feel a bit tired and you're doing it feels tired, doesn't it, to read or to watch or to listen to, but here, because he's so eager to grasp this chance, he so wants to tell this story, so wants to play this character, it helps imbue the whole movie with that.
Oh, definitely. I mean, to direct and to star in the film is a huge undertaking. And, you're dealing, every scene he's in is acting across from two child actors as well, that can be a problematic thing in a lot of ways for actors as well, with child actors and their level of discipline and what have you. But obviously we'll get to it later, but I think the two kids in this are excellent, by the way.
I agree.
Their performances are really good. They carry the film in a lot of ways. But he has no scenes with anyone else really other than the victims, but I'll say victims in inverted commas because there's more than meets the eye there, which we'll get to. They're not really victims as such. But yeah, every scene otherwise is with these two kids. You don't really see him interact other than sort of hitting people over the head with a piece of lead pipe. He doesn't interact with any adults in the thing really. And yeah, the three-way chemistry between the three, I think, is excellent. I think he cast really well. He obviously, obviously put a lot of thought into getting the two boys and the right one, particularly the older child, who plays Fenton. I thought he was excellent, really, really good. And yeah, it's just from top to bottom, it's just really well made, well acted, great, very small cast, but a very good cast. Well, obviously we're here to talk about McConaughey, and there's lots to talk about there, and also Powers Booth. I think he's excellent in it as well. But it's all just so understated, Characters very rarely raise the voice in this film. It's very, very watchable.
Yeah, and Powers Booth is another guy that can often go big, isn't he? And here he's really dialed in too. Now, I agree about the two kid actors. I think they're really strong. I was watching it and it was really bothering me. I think same as you, I haven't seen this for a very long time. I own it on DVD, and it's obviously one that I bought either to watch it because I'd seen it and then wanted to own it. But I don't think I'd watched it for well over a decade, if not longer. So the younger boy, Adam, I just couldn't place it. It was bothering me for so long. I try not to go on my phone during movies, particularly when it's for this, obviously. So I waited. And I looked him up afterwards, and he's one of the main supporting characters in the later seasons of Friday Night Lights.
Right, okay. I never did watch that, but yeah. Okay,
but I mean, another Texas-based show. I mean, these are all Texas people in this, which I think is really interesting as well. Parsby, McConaughey, Paxton, these are all Texan boys. But yeah, I think Matt O'Leary, the guy that plays Fenton, I agree, is really strong, isn't he? At times, the way that he delivered certain lines, it made me think of somebody like River Phoenix in Stand By Me, or he just had this sense of gravitas, which you don't expect somebody of his age to have, to be able to sell these complicated emotions of somebody so young.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And watching it with the context of knowing what happens in the end, you're watching his performance more because you're looking for, I found myself looking for clues in this film, and there's quite a few as to, again, I guess we can spoil it.
Yeah, we will spoil it.
Who may or may not have seen it. For clues about whether obviously we know at the end how it all pans out, but whether Bill Paxton's father, as the father character, is either a fucking lunatic, evil incarnate, or actually on a mission from God. Yeah. And there's clues throughout the film that sort of show you what's going to happen at the end. And sorry, I went off track then. But yeah, that young boy, again, his performance, you can see there's a dichotomy in there, because ultimately that his character grows up to be, I guess, the villain of the piece in some ways. It's all off camera. We don't get to see him do any of the things he grows up to do. We just see him at the end, I guess, when he's sort of at the end, wanting to have his life ended and be sort of put out of his misery. But watching it, you see the boy. There's elements where his father's telling him something, and he's not looking scared. He's not looking like puzzled. He looks like angry at what his dad's saying. And, it makes me wonder throughout the film, it's an interesting question, was Fenton Meeks always lined up to be a quote-unquote demon or demonic person, or was he pushed that way because of his father's attitude to him? It's like nature versus nurture question, isn't it? Was that his path predetermined, or was he pushed in that direction from the treatment he got from his father? It's a very interesting way of looking at it. I'm not sure what the answer is, to be honest.
No, I don't think there is one. And I think that's something I really like about this movie, that most of it is left open, because even when you see the final, so when we haven't even done any kind of plot, have we? But yeah, dad seems to be like a really nice dad, doesn't he, to begin with? He's been widowed. They have this weird setup where Fenton is almost kind of like a surrogate mum, I suppose. He's sort of doing the cooking and looking after the younger brother, Adam.
Yeah, so dad gets home from work.
Yeah, he's like, what's on the table, sons? But it seems to be working for them. It's a really nice setup. There's no issues until, as you said, like dad now starts having these visions where he has to become God's hand and he has to take care of these demons. And then the film from there is all about, do we trust in what he's saying, or is he doing this because he himself is having a psychotic break? And he makes really interesting decisions, doesn't he, about when he lays his hands on his, as you said, quote unquote victims. He sees something, but we as a viewer don't get to see it, which I think is a great choice, because it keeps that open-ended until Act 3, when we do get to kind of flash back and see what he's seeing. I don't know how you felt. I still felt like that was still open-ended, as in he believed he was seeing that, or actually Adam believed that he was seeing that at 9 or whatever it was that he is at that point in the movie. Yeah. But it's still ambiguous for us as a viewer whether that was truly happening, or whether it was Adam's manifestations of the belief of what his dad was saying. Which side of that did you fall on?
I know what you're saying, because you wonder if it's just the kid telling his dad what he wants to hear because he wants his dad's approval and he's just going along with it. But there's a couple of things that happen in the first and second acts where you think, I think perhaps this is actually real. And there's the one where the first person they go and get is the lady.
She's a nurse, I think, isn't she?
She's a nurse who's, I can't remember what her actual crime was now. Actually, my mind is
she murdered somebody, or she was responsible for the death of somebody, maybe negligence, or maybe she'd done something in her capacity. Yeah, it's definitely that she'd killed somebody, wasn't it?
That's right. But when he puts his hand on her and sees her sins, she then becomes like, you see it more at the end with Powers Booth's character, but once they've had the hand on them, they become kind of, I don't know what the word is, incapacitated, immobile, kind of thing, like something has happened to them, like their true nature's been revealed. So that always made me think there's something there. And then the other bit is when they go and get the other guy outside the supermarket. He's like the bald-headed guy who's like revealed to be some kind of child molester / child murderer, that kind of thing. And they literally just whack him over the head in broad daylight in the middle of a supermarket car park and drag him into the van. And no one sees it. Yeah. No one reports it. No one notices it. And he says, doesn't he, Bill Paxton, before they do it, because Fenton says, "Dad, we can't do it here like this." And he said, "Don't worry, some God will protect us." And you think, well, again, how on earth did they get away with that? So you do all through it. You do think, although it's ridiculous, you do think that there perhaps is something to it. And I think Bill Paxton's has such a likability to him as well, that you find it. Hindsight, it's great to watch something with the benefit of hindsight, isn't it? Of course, but I think I find it very hard to watch it. Trying to not think about the end, but how to see him as an evil person in it. I mean, you don't get the impression he's such a good family, like you said, he's a good family man, really loving to his two sons, doing his best for them since the mother died, giving birth to the youngest one. But he has such a likability to him and such a vulnerability as well that I find it very hard to watch it and think he's a fucking nutter. This guy. He's just completely just gone off the reservation and he's killing these innocent people. I kind of watch it and think there's got to be something behind this. There's got to be. What do you think?
A big long pause. He does as he thinks. It's really interesting you say that, because I was thinking about my own personal biases as I'm watching it in terms of kind of quote unquote belief in that I don't have belief in this kind of deity power and somebody that could come and give you this advice and send you on this mission. So that is always, I guess, a barrier for me personally. But I like the idea of doing something because it is for the greater good, or it's the right to say. I don't know. I think I'm totally bought in because I want to understand where it's going, and I think if it was anything other than God, and this is on me really, I'd probably be much more invested. Do you know what I mean? Like X-Files, Fringe. Give me weird science, or give me aliens. Yeah, I'm all down. An alien came and told me to do it. Okay, great. So I don't know. I guess part of me would like it if the ending felt more open-ended. It feels like a bit of a bow at the very end.
There's no ambiguity at the end, is there? You know exactly what was going on the whole time.
I think so. Yeah. I think we're supposed to believe that this truly was kind of Old Testament God using this family to remove these evil people. But I think it might have been nice to have kept that a bit more ambiguous, and like, has it now been passed on to Adam? This kind of, is this a mental illness, or is this like have they been touched? I think it might have been interesting, because at times it almost feels like a TV pilot, and I don't mean that in a critical way, because we know how good TV's got nowadays. But you could sort of imagine this spinning out into like a Dexter style show, or the thing that it made me think of, obviously being Texas, was like American Gothic. I don't know if you remember that show.
I do, yeah.
Years ago, loved that.
Yeah, with Gary Cole, was it? Yeah,
that's it. Yeah. I felt that I've not watched that ever since it was on, I don't think, for a very long time. But I could see it becoming this kind of, Adam Meeks off doing things. And if that kept it kind of Twin Peaksy ambiguous all the way through, that would have been really interesting. So I'm torn. I think it's just a bit of a shame that it totally commits.
Yeah. It does. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. There's no grey area at the end. We as an audience know exactly what's been going on. There's no like, oh, is there any doubt, or is this family just fucking nuts? It actually happened. They actually, I guess, were doing God's work in this. They were on a mission from God, and we were given these names of these evil people in the world who needed to be removed from the world because of the terrible things they've done. But yeah, I know what you mean. It would have been quite interesting just to leave it, let you come up with your own interpretation rather than just like and seeing how as well. There's like a little bit, isn't it, where you see the CCTV footage of him at the FBI headquarters, and you see how they're able to get away with things, and how there is clearly some help from the other side at play, isn't there?
Yeah, because I mean, we're jumping around the place, but I think that's okay. The reason Matthew McConaughey, who we'll talk about, you're right, who is Adam but is posing as Fenton. I'm not sure if that was a necessary step for the script to do, but we'll talk about that as well. He's gone to see Powers-Booth's FBI character, hasn't he? Because actually he is on his list. And although it seems like he's there to confess that it was his brother and all this stuff, it's actually because he's manipulating him so he can take him to the Rose Garden and kill him too. And then Powers-Booth's character is still quite confident, isn't he? Because he's kind of like, well, you can't get away with this. I'm an FBI agent. People have seen you in the office. And you're right. We get this wrap up where the CCTV doesn't work. The agent that met him, like, literally face to face, can't remember what he looks like. And all
and
of
then
that
meets him afterwards just to cement that as well, don't they?
Yeah, I love that scene actually. But that's where it sort of feels like it could almost become like a small town, everyone in on it. And are they all in on it because, it starts with the Meeks and then it becomes this wife that he's got who's pregnant, and then it kind of felt like that could grow and be really interesting. And is the town in on it because they've been cultified and they've all become kind of infected by this craziness, or is it because they all have, the spread of God's hand starts here? That would have been such an interesting, ambiguous show or an ambiguous story to tell.
Yeah,
so it frustrates me a little bit. And I think from reading some of the Letterboxd reviews after watching it and gathering the ones to share in the show, that the thing that seems to antagonize people, if they're, and there always is people who take against films, obviously, is the kind of heavy-handedness of God, really, by the end of the movie.
Yeah. I get what you mean. Yeah, although the ending in some ways is very satisfying because it gives you all the information you need. I know what you mean. A little bit of doubt in there would have been interesting, and questioning motivations as opposed to having it all spoon fed to you, and there literally being no room for maneuver there at the end. As much as I found it quite satisfying in some ways, I do get what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, I think the writing generally is very good in this. I
agree. Yeah,
the guy who wrote it, Brent Hanley, I think his name is. He's not looking at his work. He didn't write anything else that surpassed this in terms of notoriety or fame or anything like this. But I think it is very well written because it is a very dialogue heavy kind of piece, isn't it? It doesn't rely on action sequences or anything like that. It is literally just more about relationships and dialogue. There's no, other than that bizarre visual effect of the angel. And again, then, although you actually get to see that, you do wonder now again, was this all in at this point anyway? The end again makes it look at it in a different light, but that bit you're thinking because it just shows him under his car while it's all going under not his car, but the car in the garage he works at, repairing it, while the world goes on around him. But he's got this very clear vision of this angel descending with a flaming sword. It's a really cool visual effect.
Yeah, I like the effects. That's great. Yeah.
But again, that's the one part of the film that isn't sort of grounded in reality, really.
I agree. I think it comes at a period where I think these kind of films feel like they're quite common, or not common, that's not right there, and trendy isn't the right word either, because it's not trendy, but Seven is definitely a touchstone in terms of that, and that's why I think ambiguity would be interesting, because in Seven, John Doe is clearly not a good guy, but but his kind of methodology of what he's doing is really interesting, as in they are all also not good people that he's killing. That's interesting. So you can not pick a side, but you can kind of, until the final killing, almost understand his perspective. But then, like, obviously, Usual Suspects is a big touchstone, isn't it, in terms of the framing device? There's even a bloody corkboard on Paz Booth's wall. I was thinking, oh God, we're not going to get a literal like Usual Suspects, because I couldn't remember. But then these kind of supernatural horrors are popular at the moment, around this time, aren't they? Around the late 90s, early 2000s, like Stigmata and End of Days, and even Sixth Sense to an extent is playing with some of these same ideas. This could almost be sideways Shyamalan, couldn't it? So it feels very kind of in keeping with a subgenre, I suppose, that's got some entries around this time.
Yeah, I think it's very much of its time. I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Jack. I think it's very much a 2001, early 2000s, late 90s movie. It looks and sounds very much like that. Which is not a bad thing, No. I mean, you don't at the same time, you don't watch it and go, "This is a load of old nonsense." I do think it's aged quite well.
I agree.
But it like you said, you're quite right. It looks and sounds like it. I do like you touched on it very early, but I do like the title sequence. We don't get that in films anymore. We just don't. They don't exist other than Bond. As if they ever get around to making another bloody Bond film at this rate, with Amazon. But yeah, other than the Bond franchise, films don't have credit sequences at the start anymore, do they? Where a piece of music or a theme song or whatever it may be plays and you get the entire credits. But here we do, and that music is it's really good. I love that. I like the whole score. I think the whole score is really good. I mean, Brian Tyler, he's gone on to have, he was only quite young here. I think he was in his late 20s, but in the years since, he's done most of a vast percentage of the Fast and Furious franchise. He's done some MCU films as well. He's very successful, big time Hollywood score guy now. So this, but I think he's done I think he did the Expendables.
He did the Expendables, yeah.
Right. I don't think he came back for Expendables 4. I think he saw what was going on there, or maybe his fee had gone up. Due to his career going on, and obviously that film's not really had a lot of money spent on it. I think he was probably too expensive. But yeah, his body of work is really good. And this being one of his first, not his first, but one of his first feature films, I think he does a stellar job. I think the score is really good.
Oh, I agree.
Specifically in that title sequence, but later on as well, there's moments where it just really helps to enhance what's going on and just add that. It's like an uneasy quality to it, isn't there?
All the way through, I agree. Like, although you're kind of rooting for this family, I think because of as you said, the chemistry of the actors, because it's Bill Paxton and we like him, because we like his other characters. I agree with all of that. Yeah, everything feels a little bit uncomfortable all the time in this movie. And I think a lot of that is down to Tyler. I agree. I felt exactly the same. And I thought, who is this? This is such a good score. This feels like a really underrated score to me that really sets the tone.
Yeah.
I was quite surprised it was him, if I'm honest, because it's not what as you said, you've outlined perfectly what he's gone on to do. Yeah. It's not this style, really.
He's like a laugh. Action guy now, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, it made me laugh because I can never forget the line in Forgetting Sarah Marshall. I don't know how well you know that movie, but Jason Segel's character plays a composer in that, and he's always like, let me guess, dark and ominous tone. Dun, dun, dun. I love that line of that movie. It's just really funny. So whenever I hear this kind of score, even when it's as good as this one, it still takes me back to that kind of that joke in that movie of this dark and ominous. But this makes you feel a bit icky all the time. Yeah.
There's a kind of, I guess, the Texas setting as well. There's kind of like a sweaty, dirty quality to the film as well, isn't there? They're always, they spend half the film in sheds and in dug holes and the backs of vans and things like that. And there's a very earthy kind of grimy quality to it that I really like.
That's true. And although I think we agree, it feels of the time it was made, like that late 90s, early 2000s. It's set in the late 70s, isn't it? At the 70s to 80s.
Yeah, the majority of the film is, yeah.
So the flashback scenes of Bill Paxton and the kids, isn't it? It's set then. And that has that kind of something about that, that kind of Texas Chainsaw type, it's a few years after that came out. Again, that gives it that sense of kind of like tactile, lived in, like believable that this could be going on at this kind of time, perhaps that this was the rise, wasn't it, of that kind of into the 60s and onwards kind of cults and serial killers and kind of the fascination and the explosion of that as a kind of cultural phenomenon was around this time as well. So that feels very clever that it's set around that time too.
Yeah, I think it works really well because it helps keep things simple as well. We're not using glamorous methods here. This is the late 70s. There's no technology in the film. No one's using mobile phones. No one's using computers. Even the methodology they use is very simple as well, isn't it? The weapons that supposedly God has imbued them with, an axe, a lead pipe, and a pair of gloves. Yeah. It's simple as it gets. They're not using sophisticated methods here of removing these would-be demons.
There's no Saw-style traps or anything.
Exactly. There's no priest going, the power of Christ compels you, or any of that, is there? It's literally a lead pipe over the head, and then an axe to chop you up into little pieces, and in the rose garden you go. But again, works very, very well. I just think it's from top to bottom. There's nothing seems out of place. And just the characterization's really good. I think it works really well. But I do want to touch on what you said. I don't understand it either. Why, when we in the present day, which is like how the film sort of starts and ends, and there's there's various jumps back to that sort of office scene at the FBI. Why he does pretend to be Fenton Meeks, I don't understand. For the purpose of going into the office, why can't he be Adam and say it was my brother Fenton that did this? Why is he the other way around? It doesn't quite. I don't quite get that.
I guess actually now I'm thinking about it. So when he goes into the office, he says he's Fenton, doesn't he?
He does, yes.
And then by the end of the film, when Powers Booth's character has been killed, he's been killed by Fenton, hasn't he? He was actually the contemporary, current day God's hand serial killer, but a real serial killer. He's just killing people indiscriminately. So I guess Adam does that to cover his tracks, doesn't he? That he really killed Powers Booth. Is this making sense?
Yeah.
So the case gets wrapped up, and they're like, Powers Booth, the FBI agent who was investigating the God's Hand killer, was killed by the God's Hand killer, who was Fenton Meeks.
Fenton, yeah.
But actually,
and his killings were not God's mission. He was just a serial killer.
Yeah, as you said, turned by what his dad did, or whether he was always a demon.
Yeah.
But actually, it was Adam that killed him after he'd already killed his brother Fenton, because he was on his list. So I guess it helps to frame Fenton and let Adam get off, doesn't it?
Yeah, I suppose, because although I guess if they can't remember him, they can go, oh, it was such a body called Fenton who came into the office to see him, and that's who he left the office with. Yeah, okay, I do get it now. Yeah, I guess I just wasn't. But
this has happened in the 10 minutes we've been talking. Like from when I watched it, it was a thing that was bothering me. It was like it felt like an extra like hoop to jump through just for the viewer. Really, it felt like a viewer's thing. But as you was talking, and my brain was starting to try to piece it together, I guess that's why, isn't it? So Fenton killed him. Fenton, the serial killer, not Adam, the actual hand of God. Yeah,
it makes sense now. Yeah, I guess it does. Yeah. Okay, I'll buy it.
But it's quite hard work to get there. Maybe that's a good thing, that it's smart and it makes you work to get there. Maybe that's the point, isn't it? That what Adam's doing is actually really quite clever, and they probably won't piece it together, won't put it together.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. And what do you think about McConaughey in this? Then it's an interesting role for him, isn't it? Because he, by this point in the career, he started to do some of those leading man roles, hasn't he? I think this one comes out after Amistad and
Wedding Planner. We've had
Wedding Planner. U571 was just before this as well, wasn't it? Where he's the lead. I mean, although he is kind of the lead in this, he's kind of not, because his actual screen time probably isn't a huge amount when you think about it. The majority of the film takes place in 79, doesn't it? Whereas he's probably on screen for, would you say 15, 20 minutes, if that?
I would say max, yeah. No pun intended, sorry. Yeah, I thought it was really interesting because when you get the credits, you get kind of Bill Paxton, don't you, sort of top left screen, and the Matthew McConaughey kind of bottom right screen, but they come up at the same time. They're doing that kind of towering inferno poster debate of like you look to the left first, but then you look at that last, so it was kind of equal billing idea.
Yeah, the old McQueen Newman thing.
Yeah. But yeah, he's not in it very much, really. It's really interesting. I guess his star power got him that above the title place for his name, but
he's the biggest name in this film. Even back then, he was a bigger star than Bill Paxton and certainly anyone else in the film. Yeah,
it's a very reserved performance, isn't it? I think it's in keeping with what you were saying about kind of Bill Paxton's performance as well. He's very reserved's not the right word. Composed, maybe.
It's a really interesting performance. He the whole film he speaks in a very monotone way, doesn't he? He's very slow. Speaks very slowly. Never raises his voice. Never increases the pitch or anything. And it's good as well because he does certainly until we get to the end at the Rose Garden. He does have an air of someone who's perhaps a bit mentally disturbed. You know, it's only when we see at the end what it's all about, and you think, oh, okay, I guess he's just doing what he's got to do. You're not quite sure about him, are you? Like, what's going on there? You do think perhaps he's the true. Before we get to the end, you think he's perhaps the villainous character or something like that. As
we believe he's Fenton for the majority of the movie, isn't it? It's only really last 10 minutes, 15 minutes, we find out that he's been playing this trick, that he's Adam.
Well, yeah, there's no reason to doubt what he's saying, is there? There's zero evidence to suggest he isn't Fenton Meeks. So I guess so. Yeah,
we could understand why he might be a bit odd as an adult after what happened to him as a child. I really like it actually because I think it measured is the right word, is the word I'm searching for in the performance. But I think that's because the character of Adam, as you said, is measured. He thinks about everything he's saying. He's being really careful of what information he gives and doesn't give. He's in control of the situation, despite the fact he probably shouldn't be, really. Again, that's where it gave me a little bit of that kind of John Doe 7 vibes, particularly when they're in the police car.
Yeah.
And
it's like that, isn't it?
Driving, and Adam Fenton is in the back, and we're seeing him through the grill, just like we do with John Doe when he's been taken to find out what's in the box. That's one of those scenes that I really, really like in this movie. I think it's directed brilliantly. The way that we feel the geography of the car, which I know is a small space, but in terms of, it's really interesting in terms of power dynamics, those scenes. Because Powers Booth is in the front, he's never seen behind a grill, he's the cop, he should have all the power, and yet Fenton Adam, Matthew McConaughey, who's behind the grill, who's handcuffed, who is in the position that a criminal is normally in, feels like he's in control, and that comes from, I think, the direction of the scene, but also the performance of McConaughey too. Yeah,
oh, definitely. I mean, again, it's all hindsight, but he's engineered the whole situation anyway to get to this point. Anyway, it's all playing out exactly how he planned it and how he wants it to pan out to get him where he needs to be to rid the world of him. But yeah, it's a very very understated performance. I mean, even at the end when he reveals who he truly is and reveals that he's here to finish another job for the Lord, I guess you'd say. Even at that point, he never raises his voice, even when he's about to swing the axe on Powers Booth's character and finish him. Again, nothing. It just, there's nothing there. It's like he's just a shell. It's a really interesting performance. And then it's only at the very, very end scene where you see a slightly different air to him when he's sort of back as he truly is as the sheriff of this small town with a baby on the way as well, and you do think, oh well, that's the next generation of God's right hand there, being incubated there, ready to carry on when it's his time to shuffle off. it's only then you see a different side to him. It's a really, really interesting performance. I'm quite intrigued as to what, I guess maybe it was the chance to work with fellow Texans, and he liked the project, that he would take a film like this and a role like this, a small role in a small film, at a time when his career is really starting to, the trajectory is really starting to take off, putting him into that leading man category. It's a strange choice in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it speaks volumes, perhaps, of kind of who he already wanted to be at this point as an actor. But perhaps, we know it's going to take a few years for him to consistently be afforded the opportunities. But going back through this project, it's been really fascinating, because in my head, and I guess maybe in most people's head, it was kind of wedding planner, and from that point onwards, it was rom-com, like non-stop. He's the rom-com guy. He's the new Hugh Grant. He's the American Hugh Grant. He's the guy you call for all these roles. But then, Frailty, Reign of Fire. These are really interesting, smaller movies, character parts almost, really, that he's invested in playing. I think. Yeah, I mean, I just don't know. If I'm him and Bill Paxton calls me up and says, "My Texan brother, do you want to be in this movie?" and I'll direct, and I can see why he'd jump at the chance. But you're right; it's not really pushing his career anywhere. It's just a good opportunity for some quality work.
I think so, yeah. And it just occurs to me, wasn't Bill Paxton in U571? Have I completely...
He was, yeah.
Have I completely imagined that? So he was, yeah. So I guess there must have been a relationship formed there as well, I suppose. And I suppose it was a chance to work with his friend, I suppose, and something on his home patch as well. This is... You say it's all Texan cast, and it's obviously set in and filmed in Texas, so I guess it was, a chance to work closer to home, so to speak. But so I can see the appeal of it, and like you said, it's if people are sort of, he's on the cusp of being pigeonholed as that rom-com guy who just looks handsome on camera and perhaps not a lot of depth to it. It's roles like this that shows that is there, So definitely. I can completely understand the motivation for doing such a role. It's definitely a good string to his bow and a worthy film in his canon,
Paxton's not stupid, of course. He does get him with his top off for a shot. So, he makes sure he gets that crowd in too. Just in case the ladies come in knowing it's a McConaughey movie, or the men, of course. I don't mind seeing him without his top off either.
Well, of course, yeah. Well, you've got to play to your strengths, haven't you?
You do, yeah.
If I had a physique like that, I'd never wear a top. I'd just be constantly sans shirt, so to speak. But you can't blame him. You've got to play to your strengths. But I think it's just a really good role. And what do you think of Powers Booth's character in it? Did you find the sudden revelation of what he did to his mother just to seemingly come out of nowhere, or did you think there's something wrong with this guy? Because he plays it very straight as an FBI agent, doesn't he? There doesn't seem to, other than being sort of to the point and a bit of a hard ass, there doesn't seem to be any underbelly with him so much, does there? I don't. Did I miss it? I'm not sure. What do you think?
It's a little bit out of left field, I guess. We've spoken a lot about the idea of hindsight. I think, same as you, haven't seen this film, knowing what was going to happen. You do get the McConaughey. Here's a picture of your mother. Tell me about your mother. So there is this kind of like in hindsight foreshadowing, but they are the kind of small talk things I guess people might want to talk about, might want to generate as kind of conversation starters anyway. But I'm not sure there's enough lead into to this. I think we needed a bit more. Maybe he seems a bit corrupt, or he's the office, he's the FBI office bad boy, or there needed to be a bit more, didn't there, for us to see the breadcrumbs a little bit.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be anything there as such. I mean, like you said, there's another bit where when they're in the car and he asks about what happened to his mother and did they ever catch whoever did it? And he's like, no. I suppose that, again, with hindsight, is something you can look at and think, oh, okay. What's going on here?
It's often motivation for people to go into kind of police force roles or detective roles, isn't it? Is that there's something from their own past, investigative journalism is because there's something from... So, yeah, I guess it's playing with that idea, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Just
And
the fact is, Powers Booth, he often plays a bad guy, so
yeah, that's one thing, isn't it? You're very rare. I mean, again, God rest his soul. He died the same year as Bill Paxton, actually, 2017, but a few months apart. Actually, I think literally within 3 months, the two of them died, albeit in very different circumstances. But yeah, his body of work, he always seemed to be the villainous character, didn't he? But I think he's very good in this. And Powers, what a magnificent first name! I mean, like, who goes? I name my child Powers. You know, maybe it was a hot name in Texas in the 1940s. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
I'm not sure.
And it's his real name as well. Because I was thinking, surely is that like a
stage name,
stage name of some description? You know, was he just trying to come up with a cool name when he was a young man in the 60s trying to, make his way? But no, it's his actual birth name. It's bonkers.
He's just one of those people. He's alongside Paxton. Sorry, like when you see their name crop up, it doesn't matter how big or small the role is. You're like, oh, Bill Paxton's in this. Oh, Powers Booth is in this. It's a lift, isn't it? Whenever you see them in the credits or they pop up on the screen, they're just those kind of guys. You're like, oh, I'm glad they're in this. Like, you're going to get solid work from them.
Yeah. Even if the film's an absolute turkey, you know that they're going to be watchable, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Powers Booth was a fantastic screen presence. He had sort of that face, didn't he? That kind of brooding, like he always seemed like there was something going on there behind the eyes, kind of thing. Very, very good character. And I guess they'd worked together as well in Tombstone, hadn't they? Powers Booth and Paxton as well. So again, he's bringing people into the cast that he obviously trusts and had worked with previously, knows what they're about, knows what they can bring to the part. And again, I suppose again, it's all hindsight, isn't it? But there's a bit right at the start when Powers Booth's character, I can't remember his name now, Agent Doyle, is it? Agent Doyle. When he first walks into the office and his subordinate says, he's been waiting in your office for so long. And when he walks in, he offers his hand to shake, doesn't he?
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
but he doesn't take his hand. And at first you think it's just because he's a bit odd or something. But again, if he had took his hand there and then, he would have had visions of what Powers Booth had done to his poor old mother, and then the game would have been afoot, and it would have been very difficult, even with God's protection, to kind of smuggle him right past the guy before, because they wait till the guy's knocked off for the evening, don't they?
Yeah.
Before they go, right, let's go on a little field trip now to go and find these bodies. They wait till the junior agents decided to go home for retire for the night, don't they? So again, it's just that, again, a little, when you watch it for a second time, there's all these little bits in that make you think, yeah, this is actually happening. This isn't some wild psychotic fantasy. They are actually God's warriors, or whatever you would want to call them. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. I like films like that where you can watch them a second time and pick up on things that you when you watch it blind, you don't really notice these things, do you? But yeah, it's all there. It's all there.
It is there, yeah. I think, and I guess despite the lack of ambiguity at the end, I guess it still does leave you open to deciding how you feel about the situation. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think we can all support killing off the child molester. No problem with that. But we don't, as you said, with the nurse, with Powers Booth, we don't necessarily get the full kind of picture, the full story of how these situations came about, crimes of passion, or, very deliberate acts of kind of wanton aggression or murder. Or so I think again, it's quite clever in its writing there, in that we are ultimately cheering on a guy killing people, not, as you said, with a lead pipe and an axe. Like, these are brutal acts at the end of the day, despite it being, and maybe we should talk about that, despite it all being done off camera, it's all implied, isn't it? Nothing is actually seen, really.
Yeah, not really, no.
But we're sort of cheering these people, this guy on, when we don't know the full story behind the people that they themselves, who are demons, are killers. We don't know the full story behind their own situation and how they got themselves.
I mean, you'd have to presume again, it's all hindsight. I keep saying that word, but it is. I suppose if they were on a list provided by an angel or provided by God, that they would be the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose the scene where you get the flashback to Powers Booth, his poor mother's just pegging out the washing, isn't she?
Yeah.
Before he just appears behind her out of nowhere wearing a really bad wig to make to make him look younger, and he just goes full on Anthony Perkins on his poor mother.
But that's interesting because I was thinking, like, is it a psycho situation? Is she herself been abusing him, so therefore his act is obviously murder is bad, but or has he been pushed to that position, or is he just evil? Or there's layers, isn't there, for you to decide where you land? I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's where do you stand on do people actually deserve to die, even if they are the worst of the worst? I suppose that's a moral debate, isn't it? I mean, I don't know. I don't suppose, if people are child killers, then no one's going to cry a tear to see that they've been their lives have been ended. That's for sure. But yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, ultimately, McConaughey's character is the hero of the piece, and obviously Bill Paxton's character as well. I mean, they've just been sort of doing what God commands and ridding the world of evil, I suppose, which I suppose ridding the world of evil is not a bad thing. But yeah, it's the methodology, isn't it? It's like incredibly brutal and unforgiving, but it's that question of, do people deserve an end like that if they've done horrific things to people in their lives? It's kind of a strange one. It
is. It's, you think about the central scene where you alluded to it earlier, where he makes Fenton dig the hole. That feels like a kind of, well, it's definitely a punishment, but it feels like that kind of, we're playing with kind of biblical testament ideas. It feels like that kind of punishment, doesn't it? You've done wrong, so now you're going to have to dig this hole, and almost like Goodfellas style. You're going to dig your own grave.
And then he locks him in the cellar for a week as well, doesn't he? With no food.
Right. Yeah, it's not great parenting.
Till he sees God, quote unquote. But again, there's an ambiguity there. Did he? Because he says he does when they let him out. But did he see God? Is he telling his father what he wants to hear so he can let him out? Has he at that point not seen God but seen the devil instead, and fully embraced his evil nature? Again, there's so many questions you can ask about.
I agree. Does the dad have to die ultimately because he kills the innocent sheriff? So they have to close that circle off. So if you do murder, because when it's not in the name of God and being God's hand, do you then say that with Fenton, as a boy, kills his dad, doesn't he? He pretends he's going to kill one of the victims and axes his dad in the chest. Well, does that have to happen because his dad killed the sheriff? We have a really good scene, don't we, where he's like, "You've made me do murder." And the boy's like, "But no, Dad, you've killed lots of people." Like, no, I've only murdered one person. The rest were demons. It's fine, son. That was a great scene, I thought, as well.
Yeah. There's a lot of morally grey area, isn't there?
Yeah, it's great.
I think so. Because even the people that we're rooting for, you're thinking, this is a bit much. Yeah. Rather than, why can't you find a way to present evidence or something and get them locked up paying for the crimes? Why'd you have to bludgeon them to death? Again, maybe they deserved it. I don't know. But yeah, it's an interesting one. It's, I like films like that have a bit of ambiguity about the hero and are they do the ends really justify the means? I'm not sure. But it is kind of cool. Yeah.
Although I felt a bit frustrated, I would have gladly, like I say, if this had been a TV pilot or I'm not sure it would sustain sequels, but I would have gladly have sort of seen some more in this world. Nowadays, you would have got spin-off comics or whatever it might have been, but it felt like a story that still had some more to say. And I think that means I must have been bought in. And I guess you felt the same.
Yeah, you could have definitely have had the Adam Meeks Chronicles or something. It shows him knocking off people on the lists that he keeps being given, because they obviously keep getting, once they've completed the list, they must be given a new one. The fact that this is like 20 years after the events in the flashbacks and he's still finding names on the list.
Yeah.
And seeing how he reconciles that in his head, and does he have? He seems to be really steadfast at the end there. When he's revealed as the sheriff, and he meets the young FBI agent and shakes his hand, and he's like, "Oh, you're a good man. You're a good man.
Nice touch, that.
Go with God," and that. But he seems cool as a cucumber at the end. After he sees him off, he's there with the wife and stroking a pregnant belly, saying, "Yeah, all's good."
She seems like she's in on it, right?
Oh yeah, definitely, because she took that call, didn't she? Do you remember when he rings the sheriff's station and it's her who answers and says, "Oh yeah, I know Fenton Meeks. Yeah, he stole his brother's body and took the ambulance, which is parked up, isn't it?" So again, she's definitely an accomplice. She's not just an unsuspecting wife who thinks a husband. She's fully in on it, isn't she? And and he's just at the end, it's all calm. It's like, "It's okay, my darling. God's work has been done.
Yeah,
all's good in the world, But I'd love to see if there's more to that. Yeah. What happened in the years between when we see him? He sees his own father murdered. Yeah, but then he still has the resolve to. After his father's been killed, the young Adam picks up the axe, doesn't he, and takes out the person that Fenton was supposed to kill. The guy who's tied up on the floor. He finishes his dad's work. Yeah. But what happened in the 20 years since? There's some voiceover, isn't there? The voiceover says they were taken in, but eventually ended up in separate orphanages or something like that. I think he says, doesn't he? But
what did you think of? Sorry, go on. You'd have to see that.
No, I'd just like to see what happened in those 20 years. How does he? How does it work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely more story to tell, isn't there? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It was just you saying voiceover. Suddenly, you could see the thought came into my head, because that's probably where McConaughey does most of his acting, isn't it? Because although he's visible on screen for a short amount of time, we do get a lot of voiceover.
He does.
What did you think of that aspect of it?
No, I think it works really well, actually, because it's not over the top, as in like he's narrating. It's not like watching an episode of Dexter where he's doing a voiceover of his own actions every 2 minutes or whatever. It works because it helps you as an audience. It fills in some blanks for you without literally spoon feeding you every last minutiae, of what's going on in the plot. I think it's just the right amount. Do you think that, or do you think perhaps he should have dialed it back a bit?
No. I agree. I think it's just we discussed about his performance, how it's quite measured and quite controlled. I guess there was the risk that the voiceover might come across flat. It might be a bit Deckard and Blade Runner, but I don't think it is at all. But I think it's timed nicely, in that a lot of the times it's being used. It's as we come out of a flashback, and then we see him in the office again, don't we, talking to the FBI agent or in the car. So I think the way it's layered, I really like those dissolves that Bill Paxton does from the timeline. So he dissolves from one to the other, and at times there's almost kind of match cuts. The one in the police car particularly, where it's the rain on the pane of the window, and then we kind of almost match cut to back into the past and stuff. So I think it's used really well. I think there was a danger that it could have been it could have taken away, I think, because of the delivery, but I think he pitches it just right. He's directed just right by Paxton.
No, I do. I think a combination of the really good writing by Hanley and Paxton's direction, I think, works really well together. I think there's just the right amount to keep you on the hook till the end, and then, like you said, it would probably been better just to leave you with a bit of your own interpretation to fill in, rather than making it as plain as day. But yeah, I think to me that's a relatively minor quibble on what is a really, really well made film by all concerned. Like we've said, direction, writing, music, cinematography, performances. I think everything is just right.
Yeah, and as you said, it didn't make a lot of money, but it was really well regarded. I mean, you might have seen some of the same stuff that I did. Obviously Cameron likes it. He's buds with Bill Paxton, but the seal of endorsement from Sam Raimi, that's quite a big deal. Stephen King absolutely loves this movie, and it feels very King-esque, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
kind of small town Americana, and things that aren't quite, things behind the surface that aren't quite as they seem. I can see why he would like this.
Yeah, it's very King-esque, isn't it? That's for sure. Yeah. Supposedly Cameron helped a bit with the post production. You know, I saw something where, obviously, like you just said, he was very good friends with Bill Paxton. They worked together a lot on Cameron's films and what have you. But supposedly Paxton showed James Cameron like an early cut, like in the editing suite, and Cameron's like, "Oh, I love this, but you really need to change some of these, the order of some of these scenes." I don't specifically know exactly what was his recommendation, but supposedly James Cameron actually did give him some pointers into how to sequence the film. So, you know, I guess having that kind of input is pretty valuable, isn't it? You know, I was going to say, James Cameron
in the year 2000, you're paying attention, right? What was your last movie? Oh, Titanic. Yeah, I think I might pay attention to you. You know, so think what you want of that movie.
Biggest film of all time.
It did all right. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, True Lies. It did all right. Terminator 2. It did all right. So, I think I'll take your advice. Thanks, Jim. Cheers.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, if you've any sense. But yeah, I mean, you know, imagine having that kind of sounding board.
Yeah, great.
You know, and Cameron doesn't strike me the kind of guy who just sort of not bullshit you as well. Despite the fact that they were great friends, you get the friends that Cameron would like speak as he found. He seems to be that kind of guy, doesn't he? So again, you know, how would you not mine that level of expertise to make your film better? And you know, the proof's in the pudding, I guess. Yeah, definitely. Any other bits you want to talk about before we consider some letterbox reviews? Do you think there's anything we've missed? I don't think there's anything we've missed. I think it's just a really good sort of small budget, but yet really well realized film. You know, I think it could have been, if it had been, you know, perhaps promoted more, I think it could have been a bigger hit. I remember I watched this at the cinema. I remember it coming out. This back then in 2001, I actually worked at the local multiplex in Bolton, and you know, just sort of at the end of my student days. And so back then I used to watch everything, really. You know, it was all, when you work there, it's all free of charge, obviously, so I used to just go on my days off and watch any old shit. But I remember this coming out, and this was in the days when they used to have cinemas had the budgets to play trailers in like in the days of the multiplex, where cinemas were a lot busier than they are now. They used to have the, you know, trailers on rotate in the foyer, so I used to watch this trailer all the time, but it wasn't massively promoted. I don't remember a lot of TV spots and things like that back when TV spots were a thing as well. Remember that? For sure. Pre social media and everybody dissecting trailers the minute they're out and all the rest of it, and trailer reaction videos and all that bullshit. But yeah, it wasn't massively promoted, so there's not a lot of money for promotion, I guess, to film like this. But I think it could have been a big. It's a sleeper film. You don't get many people who perhaps have heard of it, probably, despite you know, back when McConaughey goes on to be an A-list leading man in Hollywood. People even who were probably like, "Oh yeah, I like Matthew McConaughey. I like a lot of his films." A lot of them probably not even heard of this film.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. But yeah, I think if people are, they're sleeping on it. You could do a lot worse than watch it. It's really good. It doesn't demand a lot of the viewer, I don't think. It's not a huge investment in time. It's, you know, it's about an hour 40, something like that. Yeah. So it's not, you know, it's not a sprawling film. I think it's very economically made. I don't think there's any wasted scenes or, you know, everything's tight. I just think it's a really, really well made. Do I think it's one of the all-time classic films? No, I don't, but I think it's a really, really well-made film that stands up to scrutiny 24 years on from when it came out. And people could do a lot worse than spend an evening watching this, that's for sure.
It feels like it had an intention, and it definitely fulfilled that intention. And then from there, it's up to you to decide how you feel about it. But I think the goals this set out for itself, it 100% achieves. Yeah, definitely. Dexter's an interesting one. I hadn't even thought of that. What an interesting comparison point in terms of, you know, a righteous killer, I suppose. And you look at what happened there and where that show went. Again, this is the potential that this could have been. The Frailty universe where the Meeks. Well, we're watching the Meeks family, and we could get Meeks the next generation, as you said, with the boy afterwards. There was scope for this to go on and be something, I think. Yeah, I mean, like you just said, that character is doing something very similar. You know, again, you know, for a better word, it's a serial killer, but technically speaking, only killing those that kind of deserve it, I guess. I've never watched Supernatural either, but that came up on a lot of the stuff that I was researching. That they're obviously demon hunting brothers, I think. if I got that show right.
I never watched it either, despite the fact that it had about 30 million seasons or something like that. But no, it's one of those shows that completely passed me by.
I think maybe we were a little bit aged out for the kind of fan base of Supernatural by the time that came out, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, I think that was the general vibe of it. Yeah. It's just, it's a story that can be told.
Yeah.
You could make this now, and
I think you're right.
An interesting film of it. It would be. You could remake it. I guess enough time has passed. We get films from the 90s that get remade now. Yeah. So this could.
Let's get McConaughey in now as the dad.
Yeah, he's the right age now, isn't he?
Yeah. Let's do it. Yeah. It starts here. This is the Frailty remake franchise.
Yeah.
Expansion.
Yeah.
Frailty, the next generation, when McConaughey is still playing Adam Meeks, he's the dad, and it's about passing it on to the son.
Yeah. I'd watch it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Sign me up.
All right. Would Isaac Stevens on Letterboxd watch it? He says this is a pretty tough movie to watch. It had a good plot twist at the end that made you think. I'm glad that Matthew McConaughey has upgraded since then. That's it, I'm afraid. But
that's short and sweet.
Yeah, there's a mixed vibe there, I think.
Yeah, well, I don't agree with that. I'm not mixed in my opinions of this film, but each to their own.
Let's have a positive one. The Burke Nation. Explosive, haunting, and criminally under-discussed. Frailty is a great psychological thriller featuring amazing performances from Matthew McConaughey and Bill Paxton, who also directed. Powers Booth also features in a memorable supporting performance. Also, the kid actors are really good, especially Matt O'Leary as young Fenton. Frailty is a spooky blend of horror and thriller that's not to be missed. If you're a fan of Bill Paxton and Matthew McConaughey, you've got to check this one out. There you go. He thinks it's...
that's kind of everything we've said for the last hour, isn't it? I completely agree with everything that gentleman or lady said. I think it's... how can you disagree with any of that? I think... That's how I would sum up the past hour in a 3-second soundbite. Definitely.
One more short and sweet one. Rebecca Joy. Well, actually, one more short one. Not at all sweet. Rebecca Joy. God was involved because only by his power could people forget seeing Matthew McConaughey. Hallelujah, praise be. So although she likes Matthew McConaughey, she only actually gives the film 1 star. But
she may be called Rebecca Joy, but I don't think there's much joy in her life if she's coming out with things like that. I mean, what a load of nonsense.
I do like the idea, though, of Matthew McConaughey, early 2000s, he's quite unforgettable, so there must be some sort of power involved in helping people to not notice him.
Well, that is the crux of the film, isn't it? God has he must put something in people's minds where they can't remember his face and what have you on, and obviously blur out all security cam footage walked into frame, which I think is a brilliant touch. I love that. But I can't agree with her. 1 star.
Yeah, 1 star.
Well, I don't know what film she was watching, but again, each to their own. Her opinion's no less valid than ours, but I just don't understand that way of thinking at all.
It's interesting, isn't it? I think the more we did when we discussed Stath stuff, and then obviously now going on the McConaughey journey, I think more often than not, it's what people think they're going to see before they watch a movie than what they've actually seen. I'm more and more convinced of this the further down this journey, and trying to be more circumspect myself and not being 20s. I'm right in my opinion, and I know everything that I'm talking about because I'm such a big film fan that I'm sure I was like at that age. But I try to watch something for what the creator intended rather than what I want it to be now, and I think that's really helps me to be more open to the culture that I'm consuming.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I sort of always had that. I mean, I think if we're honest as human beings, we all value our own opinion higher than everyone else's.
Of course,
that's just human nature. If it's your opinion, then you hold that opinion very dear, and if someone else's differs to yours, you still think yours is the correct one. Even though there's no such thing as a correct opinion. An opinion is an opinion. But yeah, I get that. But yeah, I know what you mean. Though I think as I've gone into middle age, I sort of don't think that what I think is the gospel. I think that's more of a young man's trait for sure. Yeah.
Although here at this section of the podcast, what you say is gospel, Max, because you have to give us your final review about whether you think, for McConaughey, is this a classic that everyone's got to watch? Mm-hmm. Is it worth catching if, because it's got enough story and he's good in it, or as you did last time, and I'm still sorry about that, is it completist only?
No, I'd have to say it's a classic. I really do. I really do. I think it's a really good genre film. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. It's a genre piece, isn't it? It's a psychological horror, gothic horror, murder mystery, FBI kind of film. That's a weird genre in itself, isn't it? But yeah, honestly, like I said, there's very little I could pick at this film and go, well, that didn't work so well, or I didn't like that, or that's a bit naff. Or I think it's my kind of film as well, which helps. It's the kind of film that I like. But I think it's all there. I think the cast are really good. I think it's really well directed. It's really well written. The score's excellent. The way it's shot works really well. I just think it's a really, really well made film with a cool twist ending that, although is kind of signposted, still works really well. And the revelation at the end, oh my god, all this was actually real the whole time. I would put it up as a classic if we're talking about McConaughey's own catalogue as opposed to the film world catalogue. I think it's up there with anything he's done, although his contribution to this film is less than his contribution to other films, of course, because he's not on screen throughout like he has been before and since. I still think it's a really good work from him and a really really good film. What say you?
I always find this tricky when it's because I think for me a classic within this framework of this podcast show is it some of the actors' best work, or is it really pushing their career in a new direction? I think that's where I landed when I was doing the Stath stuff. And I agree. I think he's doing really good work here. I think the film is consummately made, but I'm not sure if you took it out of his filmography, would it make any difference to his arc? Probably not. So I think I agree. I think for me therefore that kind of makes it a worth catching, probably. Yeah. Despite the fact that I agree with the quality of the movie, the quality of his performance, I think if you lost it, you would still end up in the same place.
Oh yeah, I fully understand that. I think in his body of work, it's not crucial to his career, but I think judging it as a film, I hear you. I think it's top notch. I really do.
And listen, judging it next to some of the stuff that I've been watching of his over the last few months, such as Scorpion Spring and My Boyfriend's Back, and Return of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and let's be honest, The Wedding Planner. This is way above. This is how many have I done now? Is this episode 17? I think episode 17. This is top 5. This is top tier for sure of the films that he's made up until this point in his career.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. There's better to come. In what's to come in your fantastic show. I think there's films he's made since that surpass this. My God, of course there is. But for what it is, I think it's really good. I think it's a superb film.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, I'm sure you'll agree. You've got to hand it to Max. He always brings the goods. He's doing God's work, you might say. Just with a computer and a mic, rather than a lead pipe and an axe. Thanks to all of you that are continuing to listen and partake in this journey with me through the McConaughey. That, of course, was Frailty. Next up in a fortnight, I'm going to be joined once again by Tony Farina for his third appearance this season to discuss Eminem's performance as Denton Van Zandt in Rob Bowman's Reign of Fire, for those that are watching along. Until next time, be excellent to each other and make sure you take the time to treat yourself too. I am Jack signing off. Yippee-ki-yay, movie lovers.
You just gotta keep living, man. Livin.
Cut.